Did you know that the Ramones got their name from Sir Paul McCartney? I know it sounds crazy, but it's totally true. I just found this out. So the story goes, back in May of 1960, before Paul was famous and the Beatles were still going by their old name, the Silver Beatles, the group got a gig backing singer Johnny Gentle on a small tour of Scotland. For the band, it was a sign that they were now professional musicians, and with that, they felt it was time they should have real showbiz names. Even though this practice continues today, back in the 60s, it was way more commonplace. I mean, even Johnny Gentle was a stage name, if you couldn't guess already. And Ringo, who was in another band at the time, drumming for Rory Storm, whose real name, I should add, is Alan Codwell, gave himself the name Ringo Starr. Are you still with me? Okay, so the Silver Beatles came up with their own stage names. John Lennon became, I'm not kidding, Long John Silver. George became Carl Harrison after their idol, Carl Perkins, and Paul became Paul Ramon, a name he thought sounded, and I quote, like a sexy French name. Ultimately, the name changes didn't stick around for long, although at least one set of autographs exists. Not really sure why they didn't end up using these names, but I think it was for the best. Although, I gotta say, serious documentaries about the group would have been much funnier having to refer to John as Long John Silver. Anyway, I digress. The point is, Paul never forgot about his pseudonym, and he continued to use it when checking into hotels to avoid having fans know his whereabouts. And he even used it again in 1969 when he played drums, bass, guitar, and even sang backing vocals on the recording of My Dark Hour with Steve Miller. Okay, fast forward to around 1974 when the Ramones first got together. The bassist Douglas Coven was a big Paul McCartney fan and decided to come up with a stage name to honor him and started going by the name D.D. Ramone, adding an E to the end. Although I couldn't find out where he got the name Dee, but supposedly it was a nickname he had since he was a kid. Anyhow, soon after becoming a Ramone, he convinced his other bandmates to do the same. Supposedly, they liked it because it was making fun of other popular singing families such as the Jackson 5, the Brady Bunch, and the Partridge Family. And if you think about it, it's totally on brand for them. I mean, they were like a punk band, and they're making fun of these very square bubblegum pop bands. Anyway, throughout the years, as new members joined the band, they also adopted the last name Ramone, carrying on the tradition. Now, I couldn't find out any information about what Paul thought of the Ramones naming themselves after him, but he's at least aware of it as he autographed a photo to Johnny Ramone as Paul McCartney or Ramone. And the connections don't stop there. Paul would eventually write a song titled Ram On that appears on his second album, Ram, released in 1971. And fun fact, in an alternate universe, the Ramones could have been known as the Jameses. Jameses? It doesn't quite have the same ring to it, but anyway, back in the summer of 1962, Paul thought of changing his name again, this time to Paul James. He discussed it with the Beatles' manager and even contemplated it for a few days or even a couple of weeks, but in the end, Paul decided to keep his name. He recalls, "In the end, we just thought, no, let them remember our names." And since we're on the topic, I might as well mention that in 1966, Paul McCartney wanted to see if he could score a hit single without his name attached. And so he went by Bernard Webb for a song he wrote called Woman. It was recorded by his friends Peter and Gordon and reached number 14 on the US charts and went to number 1 in Canada. He never used it again, so I think it's safe to say that it proved his point. Although I must say the Webbs would have been a good name too. Alright everyone, that will do it for today. Be sure to let me know if this was new information to you. I'm curious to know. Until then, thank you all so much for watching, but I especially want to thank my members over on Patreon. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side.